Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. This will be meeting number 68. Today, the meeting is televised, and pursuant to Standing Order 8014, the main estimates 2015-2016, we'll be going over and examining vote number 1 and 5 under the Canada Border Services Agency, vote number 1 under the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, vote number 1 under the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, votes 1 and 5 under the Correctional Service of Canada, vote 1 under the Office of the Correctional Investigator, vote 1 under the Parole Board of Canada, votes 1 and 5 under Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, votes 1, 5, and 10 under the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, vote 1 under the Royal Canadian Mounted Police External Review Committee, and vote number 1 under the Security Intelligence Review Committee. And of course, this has been referred to this committee from Tuesday, February the 24th, 2015. Appearing with us today are a number of departmental officials and, of course, as well as the Minister. I will just list them. We have, of course, the Minister, the Honourable Stephen Blaney, and Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. And our other witnesses from the Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, we have Francois Gaumont, Deputy Minister. From the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, we have Mr. Bob Paulson, Commissioner. From the Canada Border Services Agency, we have Luc Portelas, President. From the Correctional Service of Canada, we have Don Head, Commissioner. From the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, we have Michel Colombe, Director. And from the Parole Board of Canada, with Mr. Harvey Tseneko, Chairman. And from the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, we have Ian McFall, Chair. From the Royal Canadian Mounted Police External Review Committee, we have Ms. Elizabeth M. Walker, Chair. So welcome to all of our witnesses, and we thank you very, very much for being here today while we do our preliminary examination of the estimates. And we will now open the floor to Minister Blaney. Opening comments, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair Kremp. And I also want to thank you for recognizing the member of the Canadian safety community that are accompanying me this morning. And of course, there's one simple reason why I am here today. It's to seek your support for allowing the resources necessary for this community safety community to pursue its mission throughout the year. Alors disons, d'une manière plus administrative.
In a more administrative sense, I'm here to ask for your support within the context of your study of the main estimates for 2015-2016 of the public safety portfolio and to answer your questions. Of course, during the first hour for my part and then by experts during the second half of this meeting.
We can't quite hear the translation. We need it a little louder, please. Merci. Please continue, Minister, now. My apologies for interrupting, sir.
Well, first thing first, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the members, all the members of this important committee for their important work over the course of the last week and the last month in their study of 3 major and significant pieces of legislation. The first one being the Protection from Terrorists Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act, for which I am thankful for the support we got in the House of Commons yesterday, and the Common Sense Firearms Licensing Act, which should also be on the floor very soon. Alors, le projet de loi sur la protection du Canada, on s'en souvient, contre les terroristes.
And so the Canada Protection Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act, was received royal assent April 23rd, and it represents the first major changes made to Canadian legislation on CSIS in 30 years. It was intended to clarify CSIS's powers.
Does the Minister have prepared remarks? I see that he's reading from a document. We expect volunteers to come before the committee, Mr. Chair, and like to see the remarks. We can follow along. I see no reason with the reams of staff that the Minister has why he can't come with a prepared text for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Easter. Of course, we've heard your comments on a number of occasions on this matter. Yes, Mr. Blance, on the same point.
Mr. Speaker, when Mr. Easter was a minister, he never provided written remarks, and I suggest he put his listening ears on and follow along like everyone else has done over the years.
That'll be the end of that comment. Thank you, Mr. Easter. You have the floor now. Mr. Blaney, carry on, sir.
OK. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was saying, the Anti-Terrorism Protection Act is intended to clarify CSIS's powers, particularly to confirm that they have the capacity to act outside of the country and to exchange information with our allies. This is especially important in the context of travelers who travel for terrorism-related purposes outside of the country. This first element offers a legal clarification for CSIS to lead activities outside to protect its employees and information. This is an important change. There were gaps that needed to be filled, and that's why our government presented a second bill, the anti-terrorism measures, presented in 2015 in order to acquire tools not only for CSIS, but for the RCMP, as well as other departments and federal agencies, in order to break the culture of silos that we have in federal agencies when it comes to information sharing on national security. Measures that were passed yesterday in the House and which will go before the Senate will allow the government to reduce threats that are specifically linked to jihadist terrorist activity before those threats manifest themselves. We are going to act upstream in the process, particularly in the context of radicalization, by criminalizing the promotion of terrorism in general and by being able to shut down websites which include terrorist propaganda. Obviously, we are going to prevent radicalized individuals from leaving Canada in order to participate in terrorist activities. And we are very well aware, Mr. Chair, of the increasing number of Canadians who may wish to leave the country to commit terrorist activity. I would also like to emphasize that in the 2015 budget, tabled just a few weeks ago, our government is committing to increasing resources available for national security by about $300 million. This is not only for CSIS, but for the RCMP, as well as for the Border Services Agency. One important thing to note in the budget, Mr. Chair, is that CSIS's watchdog, the Surveillance Committee, will have its budget doubled in order to enhance its surveillance of our security or intelligence agency.
Common Sense Firearms Licensing Act will, as you know, provide safe and sensible firearms policies for Canadians. And you have reviewed this bill already. The goal is simple, as you know, is to remove red tape while keeping Canadians safe from gun crime. As Greg Farrant of the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters said, this bill proposes reasonable amendments to the criminal code that make sense, that eliminates red tape and introduces additional public safety measures. It does not make guns easier to get. It does not allow firearms owners to transport them at will wherever they want it, and it does not put guns in the hands of the wrong people. In the contrary, Mr. Speaker, as you know, anyone who is convicted of domestic violence will see its license removed. We are also reinforcing the capability for CBSA to exchange information with the RCMP so that we have a better control and restrict the importation, particularly in the case of illegal firearms. and we are making mandatory training for anyone who's willing to whether possess or acquire a firearm. Évidemment, Monsieur le Président, au cours de l'hiver, il y a eu un développement extrêmement majeur.
During the winter, there was a major development when it came to our relationship with the Americans in terms of reinforcing our security measures, but as well as ensuring a certain amount of fluidity at the border within the context of the Beyond the Border Action Plan. As you know, I had the privilege of signing an agreement with the Secretary of State, Jay Johnson, in Washington. And this had to do with pre-customs clearing, and this was part of the Beyond the Border initiative. We have accomplished this important step. Once I returned from Washington, I tabled the agreement before Parliament. This agreement is based on the success of pre-clearing. This has existed for more than 60 years with airlines, and pre-customs clearing is going to happen with land, maritime, and rail transportation. This is therefore an important step which will allow us to improve transportation fluidity and trade of goods, as well as the movement of people, while reinforcing security mechanisms.
From violent crime, we recently introduced the Life Means Life Act to ensure that a life sentence actually means life in prison. So as you can see, our government has one priority is to keep Canadians safe. This has been a consistent theme for our government since we were elected in 2006. This commitment to protecting Canadians is reflected in the main estimates 2015-2016. Alors, le montant qui est requis à l'étude pour vous.
The amount required before you is a total amount of $8.5 billion over the next financial year. This is an increase of approximately 1% in expenditures compared to last year. And I would like to present to you the relevant points. When it comes to CSIS, we are requesting $537 million for 2015-16 in order to ensure national security. The Canada Border Services Agency is seeking a total of approximately $1.8 billion, which is an increase of 2.2%. And Mr. Portelance will be able to describe to you how he intends to invest this money. There are serious capital expenditures that will improve the physical buildings, as well as to ensure a better and faster flow of passengers at the border. The RCMP, of course, which is at the heart of border security, plays an important role in that. They are requesting $2.6 billion for the financial year. The RCMP will continue to integrate its commitments when it comes to implementing acts linked to cross-border activity within the context of the Beyond the Border initiative signed by President Obama and our Prime Minister Harper.
Canada contributes to public safety by making sure the correctional system actually corrects criminal behavior. To perform this vital function, the Correctional Service of Canada is seeking total funding of approximately $2.4 billion for the coming fiscal year. This represents an increase of approximately 1% over the last fiscal year. Et enfin, mon collègue ici, le sous-ministre.
And my colleague here, Mr. Guimont, who coordinates operations for public safety with various agencies, as well as interventions in case of natural disasters, is asking for funding of about $1.2 billion for the 2015 financial year. This is an increase of 2.5% compared to the previous year. These requests represent an increase in effect financial assistance in case of disaster, which means in 2015-16, we're expecting to transfer to the provinces which have been affected by natural disasters an amount of approximately $8 million. These funds of $848 million. This will allow communities that are severely affected by flooding and other natural disasters to receive some relief. You will recall, perhaps, Mr. Chair, that in January our government announced a modernization of the financial agreement in case of disaster in order to take into account inflation and to ensure the financial sustainability of this program. And there are supplementary measures when it comes to the mitigation program in order to accompany provinces in their projects to reduce the impact of natural disasters. The maximum rate of 90% for natural disasters is maintained, and so our government is there to help. At the beginning of April, I announced measures inviting the provinces to submit projects to reduce the impact of natural disasters linked to the risk of flooding. So we can talk about measures that have to do with locations that are subject to flooding. And so I am pleased this morning to present an impressive track record, and I will be pleased to answer your questions. Obviously, these are large amounts which are necessary to ensure the safety of Canada's public, and I want to assure you that these amounts are being well used by the various representatives of our agencies, which I wish to congratulate for the important work that they have done during a year where they were especially called upon. We just have to recall what happened just a few meters from here. Thank you very much.
Minister Blaney, we will now go to the rounds of questioning, and we will first start off 7 minutes. Mr. Norlock, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you to the witnesses, and particularly the Minister, for appearing today. Minister, you mentioned in your opening remarks the additional fiscal room, in particular around $300 million in budget 2015, that will be going towards our national security, national security measures. And I'm wondering if you could expand on that a little bit, talking about the fiscal support and what that enables, the tools that it enables our security agencies, the additional support they need to do their job.
Thank you, Mr. Norlock. And as a former member of a former police officer, I can appreciate your support also at this committee. We've seen over the last months an increase demand from tracking individuals who would be willing to travel abroad or commit terrorist attack on our soil. We've heard here and loud both Commissioner Paulson and the head of our intelligence agency that have had to temporarily reallocate resources to tackle with the speak related to that threat. So that's why in the budget we are providing additional resources to recognize the fact that while there is a terrorist threat in this country, there are other issues that need to be addressed. We are well aware of the role of the Royal Canadian Police, that is our national police. They are dealing with organized crime, money laundering, drug. They have a large mandate, and we have to make sure that they are fulfilling their mandate in all their capacity, and as well our intelligence service. So that's why there is a provision of $300 million in the budget. You may also notice, as I've mentioned in my remarks, that we are also increasing the funding of the watchdog of the intelligence agency, which will increase and expand their capability to monitor, as they've done over the last 30 years, the work of our intelligence agency. But there is also funding, especially here, for increasing the security on the parliamentary precinct. As you know, there's been a motion voted both by the House of Commons and the Senate to invite the RCMP to coordinate the security activity here on the Hill. So this is a great outcome, again, that will ensure that there are no silo amongst different security agencies here on the Hill, and there will also be that will be implemented in the coming years. So there is funding for the RCMP, for CBSA, and for the agency in terms of the security. There is additional funding for the parliamentary precinct, and also we don't have to neglect the increasing threat our country is facing in terms of cyber security. That's why in the budget there is additional funding for increasing the capability of the government to protect itself from cyber attack, but also to be able to keep on reaching out to the industry. We are I am co-chairing with our Deputy Minister and former Minister John Manley. We are working with the executive officer of many major telecommunication and also from the banking industry. So we need to make sure that Canadian industries are protected from cyber attacks where they would try to paralyze our system or do some espionage. So that's why we are increasing our funding in our cyber strategy that we've introduced already a few years ago, because we feel there's a growing need that needs to be filled. So in a nutshell, 300 million for increasing the public funding for our security agencies, increasing the security on the parliamentary precinct, and also there's additional funding for cybersecurity.
Thank you very much, Minister. If I could change topics a bit. You mentioned, of course, in addition to your previous remarks, the National Disaster Mitigation Program. As we know, many areas, in particular Western Canada, there was some major flooding. And I wonder if you could talk about the proactive or preventative program, because it makes a lot of sense, and how it should help the provinces plan for future events and mitigate damages. And I wonder if you could talk about that a bit more. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, it's fairly simple. Since 1970, our government has introduced a province to support local communities who are faced with flooding, natural disaster, whether it be in Alberta or in the Atlantic or in Quebec. So this funding basically has some mechanism that can provide, in the case of large disaster, up to 90% of the cost of the natural disaster. What happens actually is that the program had not been modified or updated since 1970. So what we realize is $1 of 1970 is now worth $6 today. So there was a disproportionate, I would say, contribution of the federal government when compared to the original concept when the program was launched. So what we did is we've increased we actually took half of the indexation. So we are now at $3 instead of being of the actual current value would be $6. So we've been halfway. We've put the $1 of 1970 to $3 now, which would be in fact $6, and from now on it will be indexed. So this is to ensure the sustainability of the program. But also in the meantime, we've launched our mitigation program, which is providing funding for from all provinces of territories of up to $200 million, for which it is there to help to build the intelligence and the knowledge to be better prepared for natural disaster. And we are also reaching out to the private sector. We are seeing very nice initiative now, such as in Alberta, where some private insurance company are beginning to offer private flood insurance. So there is a lot of things happening in that field, and we are I would say, willing to keep a leading role by providing funding, working with our provinces and territory to be able to shift from fixing a broken glass to prevent those natural disasters from having costly impact on infrastructure by mitigating and preventing these costly impact.
Minister, and now 7 minutes. Mr. Garrison, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to the Minister and officials for being present today on this important topic. I want to start by raising an urgent public safety issue on behalf of Ms. Sims, the member for Newton North Delta, and Mr. Sandhu for Surrey North. Unfortunately, because of scheduling conflicts, neither could be here this morning. That concern is that as of the 6th of May, there have been 25 shootings in 8 weeks in the municipality of Surrey. And residents of Surrey asking where the federal government is on this. And if I can just read briefly from a statement by Ms. Sims, what she said is this is going to take all 3 levels of government working together. All I know is I live in a community where seniors are scared, families are scared, and there isn't any part of Surrey where people feel safe right now. Mr. Sandhu has asked you, Mr. Minister, twice in the House for commitments for federal action on this urgent crisis in Surrey. So I'm going to ask you again this morning. Do you have a timetable, or will you make a commitment for meeting the request of the municipality of Surrey for more officers, more RCMP officers? And secondly, will you make a commitment today that there'll be more money put into anti-gang strategies to help combat the plague of gun violence in urban areas?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Garrison. And I was myself in the streets of Surrey last year. I did a tour with a RCMP police officer in some troubling areas of Surrey. And I was impressed at the same time to see how the community is reacting to this important challenge to make their community safer. And as you know, our government has been committed since 2006 to tackle with violent crimes and gang violence. You may be aware that it's more than 30 bills and measures that have been taken, especially the drive-by shootings, which is a factor, an important measure to be an increased mandatory minimum sentences. So the first pillar of our approach is to strengthening our tools that our police officers have to tackle with gang violence. Unfortunately, Mr. Sandhu was given the opportunity to support those measures in the House, and we did not benefit from his support, but I'm glad I was able to move forward, and my predecessor as well, on those important measures by the Conservative. This being said, this is the first pillar. We also have invested more than $3 million in the community of Surrey to prevent youth from being radicalized. And we have put in place our national crime prevention strategy that has proven effective results. And we are always looking at opportunities to work with the community and the provincial government to increase the measures that are taken in place to reduce gang violence. And I've also met with the Member of Parliament, Nina Grewal. She is a member from Surrey. And I've met with community leaders. And once again, I cannot stress enough how this community is getting involved in having their community safer by supporting the effort of the police. And third and lastly, and not and as important as the 2 other pillars, is we are also working with the government of British Columbia and the city of Surrey to provide more boots on the ground. I've been working this issue with the commissioner, and he's been of great support. So these are the 3 measures we have been taking. And one way I would suggest for your colleague and yourself to make sure that we are able to continue to support the community of Surrey is to support the budget in which there is $300 million. So this funding that will be allocated to terrorism will relieve DRCMP from the reallocation of resources, and also will make it easier to send more police officers in the streets of Surrey.
Well, with respect, Mr. Minister, there's still no commitment there for anything specific for this urgent crisis in Surrey. Since you raised the general question of resources, I want to turn to what I really believe is a sleight of hand that you're playing with the budget here. You talk about more resources being available. In fact, you appeared before us in 2012 and very proudly talked about cuts of $195 million that you would make to the RCMP, and those cuts went ahead. So in this year's estimates for 2015-2016, the budget for the RCMP is actually down slightly, and that's down the almost $200 million of cuts you previously made. So when you talk about adding back money in the new budget, you talk about something 4 years off. In 2015-16, there's only $57 million for the terrorism. So even if all of that went to the RCMP is still $150 million short of where it was when you began your cuts to the RCMP. So I think it's quite disingenuous to talk about new resources. You mentioned CSIS, and you say that the budget for CSIS will be up. And in 2015-2016, indeed, it is up some $17 million. However, in 2012, you began implementation of cuts of $24.5 million. So that still leaves CSIS $17 million below where it was in 2012. So I guess I can't see how you can have it both ways. You can't have made significant budgetary savings and say you're putting in new resources at the same time. The two can't both be true.
Very brief.
Well, once again, we've increased the budget of the RCMP 7 times over the course of the last decade. Well, since we got into power, from now there is an increase of 1/3. And that's the reality. There is an increase this year of $2.6 billion. So once again, the best way for the Neo-Democrat to support more resources is to support the current budget in which there is additional funding for the RCMP.
Thank you. You have about 15.
Well, Mr. Minister, simply, as I say once again, it can't both be true. You can't have made cuts of $200 million in the RCMP and call it an increase. It's simply not true.
Écoutez, la vérité, regardez le budget de 2006.
Look at 2006's budget compared to today. There's an increase of 30%. The reality is that we're investing to protect safety. But I'll tell you honestly, we're not going to hide a rationalization exercise, because I will remind you, Mr. Garrison, because we are here to manage taxpayers' money, and it's important to make sure that they get something in exchange for their money. So when the RCMP conducted a rationalization exercise, but I would encourage you to vote for and support the budget in order to provide more resources to the RCMP and to our security agencies.
Go to Mrs. James, please. 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing, as well as the representatives from each of the agencies. First of all, Minister, you mentioned in your opening remarks about Bill C-44 receiving royal assent, as well as congratulations on having C-51 pass through the House last night on vote. So I'm very pleased as well to see that. I'm a bit concerned that there's still people, maybe members of Parliament, even some of those that are in this committee, that cannot come to terms with the fact that terrorism is a real threat to Canada. During C-51 testimony, we heard from many credible witnesses, including some that are actually here sitting beside you, from our security agencies, that talked about the fact that the threat of terrorism is real, that it has evolved, and that it is a growing problem here in Canada and around the world. Add to this the fact that during debate in the House on C-51, one member of the NDP actually referred to the October 22nd attacks that left one member of the Canadian Armed Forces dead, and of course an attack here in Parliament, as merely an unfortunate incident. So when we talk about terrorism, I want to get your opinion on why you feel personally why C-51 is so important, and the fact that Canadians should be listening to the credible witnesses that deal in the areas of intelligence gathering, law enforcement, and those that have studied terrorism, why they should be listening to those individuals as opposed to the opposition party.
Merci beaucoup, Madame James.
Thank you very much, Ms. James. If you don't mind, I will answer in French. I had the opportunity to meet the sister of Adjutant Patrice Vincent, as well as members of his family. His mother had been invited to Ottawa along with members of his family by Prime Minister Harper in order to give them the flag, which was floating above the Peace Tower on the day that Mr. Vincent was hit by a vehicle driven. You were there when the sister of Louise Vincent came to testify. She said that she believed in the measures that had been passed last night. The author of this crime would have been behind bars, Mr. Martin Rouleau-Couture, and that her brother would still be alive if those measures had been in place. Bill C-51 is intended to provide additional tools to our police forces. A few days after Mr. François Hollande came here and described both acts, which happened in Canada, as terrorist acts. The Secretary of State, Mr. John Kerry, came to visit, and he described, with no hesitation whatsoever, the acts that occurred here as terrorist acts. But as I often say, we have to call a spade a spade. What's a terrorist act? A terrorist act, the definition in the criminal code, is an act that is, above all, a gesture that is intended to attack authority. It's a gesture that's motivated by ideological reasons or political reasons. It's also a violent act. Those three elements were part of the attack at Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, as well as the individual who was here in the hallway on October 22nd. And so, I would appeal to the intellectual honesty of those who are participating in this debate to rely on the facts that we haven't recognized reality as it is, because refusing to recognize reality as it is, if we don't have the right diagnosis, we don't have the opportunity to provide the right solutions. And that's what our government, along with the Department of Justice, along with the Department of Public Safety, and every other agency, they all made an effort to prepare anti-terrorism measures that were tabled in the House at the beginning of the year. If you will allow, I would refer to a judge of the Ontario Court who described this work, and it's important to mention it because CSIS has people that work in the shadows, and we have to say that they do important work. They save lives. There's a lot of fuss about that, but every now and then we have to thank the people that ensure that we can bring our kids to daycare and do our groceries in peace. And that's what these individuals do. The judge was talking about a citizen, a 34-year-old, who was found guilty of a terrorist act.
You are now a convicted terrorist. You have betrayed the trust of your government and your fellow citizens. You have effectively been convicted of treason, an act that invites universal condemnation among sovereign states throughout the world. But hear what she had to say about the work of the Canadian Security, our intelligence service. The evidence presented in court indicated that the men were seeking to establish a functional terrorist cell in Canada. They might have succeeded, if not, to quote the judge, for the vigilant and tireless work of our national security agencies. When is it that we take the time to thank those who are keeping us safe? The judge did it when she gave that sentence to that individual who was trying to harm other Canadians. So to answer your question, the first duty of a government is to protect its citizens. This is what I would say we are able to achieve with the support, with your support, Madam James, for which I thank you, the support of your colleague, the support of those who have supported this bill, including Mr. Easter here yesterday, who have voted in favor of the bill. So I want to thank you because I believe this is an important legislation that will enable us to fill those gaps that were exploited by terrorists to harm other Canadians.
Our time is up now. We will go to Mr. Easter, please. 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome ministers and officials for coming. I'd first say, Mr. Minister, while we agree with more money for the Security Intelligence Review Committee, I would strongly disagree with your statement that it is oversight. It is not. It's after-the-fact review. And I think the government has failed the country miserably by not providing proper parliamentary oversight to the combination of security agencies that we have in this country, as all our Five Eyes partners have. So I strenuously disagree with you on your point on CERC. It's not oversight. One of the problems, and we're here to talk about estimates, but one of the problems with government budgets that we're seeing with this government is even though you allocate monies in your budget, it passes this committee and Parliament. If what happened last year is any indication, it doesn't mean it's real money. Because last year, it seems to me, and Randall went through the lapses in the funding. There was lapses to the RCMP. There was lapses in terms of the spending with CSIS, with Correctional Services Canada, with Canada Border Service Agency, and the list goes on. You know, I guess I'd put the question, this may be a little too strong wording, but I'd put the question to this way. It seems to me last year the minister quietly whispered in the ear of agency heads and asked them to kick back some money to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Is that going to happen again, or is this real money?
Well, I thank you for your question, Mr. Easter, and while I recognize you supported these important anti-terrorism measures yesterday, I strongly disagree with your view of the state of our intelligence community. And in terms of review and oversight, let me give you this opportunity to clearly state the difference between oversight and review. In the side of oversight, Mr. Easter, you may be well aware that CSIS itself had the oversight mechanism of its activity that are monitored and supervised by public safety that are there to also keep an oversight of their activity, as well as myself. This being said, as you know, and there are already provision existing, but there are provision in the bill you supported that makes that every time the intelligence agency would infringe on the right of Canadian, they have to seek consent from the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, and also seek a warrant from a judge. So this is the robust mechanism we have in place for oversight. And let me remind you that, to my knowledge, we are the only country for which, in terms of disrupting threat, CSIS, our intelligence, Canadian Intelligence Agency, will have to seek a warrant from a judge. This is not happening in other legislation. So this is it for oversight, robust oversight. Now, in terms of review, you are right to say that the Security Intelligence Review Committee is doing this job. And I would quote you to the director himself, who acknowledged that to have this distance from the ongoing activity gives them more latitude and enable them to do a better job at reviewing the activity of our intelligence agency. And as you know, the Auditor General in any time can do review activity, as well as the Privacy Commissioner. So this is what makes the Supreme Court saying that Canada, and that's why I've been saying that CERC is a Canadian model, that is the envy of the world. The Supreme Court itself is saying that CERC is establishing this balance between the procedural rights and the privacy, and also the national security issue. And just to conclude, if I may, because this goes right to your question.
Mr. Chair, I think the minister is limited to the same amount of time as the question was, and I think he's over that time. I do have a question.
You have the right to interfere.
I have a question to Commissioner Paulson, and I know the Commissioner is in somewhat of a difficult position. One, you're responsible to the rank and file in terms of their training, equipment, and the force as a whole, and also some responsibility to the government, not to complain, I guess, that the government's not giving you enough money, but I believe the responsibility to the rank and file is paramount. And you're aware, no doubt, Commissioner, the Global Television 16:9 documentary called Under Fire. It raised serious questions about proper training, about equipment been provided by the RCMP, etc. And answers haven't been forthcoming. And I can tell you that in my office we've received lots of emails from rank and file which worry me. And one of them is that although the RCMP had indicated long ago they would be rolling out the carbine program, we'll not get into the details in the Moncton incident, but is the RCMP, can you respond to that program in terms of training and in terms of equipment that rank and file RCMP members think you're short? And secondly, you indicated before the committee last time that you'd moved 600 resources from other areas of federal responsibility in terms of criminals to anti-terrorism. Has that situation been redressed now, and is there enough money in this budget to redress that situation?
Very briefly, Mr. Paulson. I'm so sorry, but Mr. Easter has used up most of the time.
Okay, well, maybe starting, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time. So we still have the reallocation of resources to address the highest priority, most threatening files. We are managing that day to day, and nothing's changed from when I last spoke about that. Let me go back to your previous question about the 16:9 program, and you characterized a cascading series of responsibilities, and you left out Canadians in there because I view my primary responsibility to keeping Canadians safe, along with the rest of the employees, the rank and file, as you put it. So that story raised some issues around equipment, around training, sensationalized around the Moncton murders, which was offensive in some respects, but spoke of officers bringing their own weapons to work and so on. I'm not aware of any of those instances. The carbine program is rolling out. We have over 2,200 weapons rolled out. It's rolled out on a purposefully risk-assessed framework that is being cautious around putting these effectively assault rifles into the hands of our police officers, recognizing that there's a need for our officers to have that kind of arming, but with conditions and policies and guidelines around the use of that. So that is progressing on schedule. We've made commitments in respect of the McNeil report on the Moncton case. We're meeting those commitments. Hard body armor has been deployed on a wide basis. Their cars have hard body armor in them. Members need to know how to put it on. In the Moncton case, that was widely available. So, you know, we continue to work on our training, we continue to work on our equipment, but I am very concerned about the safety of Canadians, our members, and working with government.
Paulson, and now maintenant pour 5 minutes, Madame Doré-Lefebvre.
And now for 5 minutes, Ms. Rosanne Doré-Lefebvre. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I would like to thank all the witnesses who are here around the table, as well as the Minister, for being there to answer our questions. My first question is for the Minister of Public Safety, Mr. Blaney, but it has to do with pardons. As you know, you're probably aware of this file, but currently there are requests for pardons that have accumulated over the last few years because of a lack of resources for the Parole Board of Canada. Currently, we're talking about thousands of requests that have accumulated at the Parole Board. The situation isn't changing. I know that there's a spokesperson who said that they would not be able to grant the resources required for 2015-16 to deal with all of the requests for pardons that have backlogged over the last several years. As you know, this has a real impact on our communities as well as on social reintegration in our communities. Some of those individuals are are being asked to withdraw the request and to restart the process, whereas they've already been waiting for years. And this costs money to request a pardon. These are often low-income individuals, and it costs a certain amount of money to restart the process. Does your government have a plan to resolve the situation as quickly as possible? Because it's not just in one riding. This is happening throughout the entire country. Do you have a plan to implement resources for the Parole Board of Canada in order to resolve this situation, which is untenable for many individuals? Thank you for your question, Ms. Doré-Lefebvre. I'm happy to inform you this morning that the backlog with regards to summary convictions has been completely eliminated. This government has, in a sense, modernized the suspension of criminal records, and the principle of user pays has been introduced. That being said, I have to remind you,
Mr. Senenko, our director, but I just want to mention, ce que je veux simplement mentionner, c'est qu'il y avait à un moment donné
I just want to say that there was a backlog of more than 30,000 requests, and it was reduced by about 25,000. As we speak, what's left to liquidate in this backlog are pardon requests for indictable offenses. There's about 5,000 left. And Mr. Senenko and their team confirmed that they had the financial resources needed to continue to deal with this backlog. And I will turn to Mr. Senenko.
Je vais revenir à vous plus tard.
Mr. Senenko, I will come back to you later because I would like to take advantage of the little time I have with the minister to ask him my questions. I don't want to be impolite. I only have a few minutes left, and so I'm going to continue with the minister, but thank you for your answer. It is very much appreciated. I have another case of programs linked to the Parole Board of Canada, or the Correctional Service of Canada. There have been cuts made to social reintegration programs for inmates who have found that those programs are going to be cut in the next few months. And I'm thinking specifically of ARCAD, which has worked for several years, as well as the responsibility and support circles, which are concerned for their funding over the next few years because it is not recurring, and they're always holding their breath to find out whether or not it's going to be renewed. What is the situation with those particular programs? Is their funding going to be renewed over the next few years because there were cuts announced? Are we going to be able to announce to them at last some good news and say that their funding will not be cut after all?
OK. Je vous remercie, Madame Laurie.
Thank you, Madame Doré-Lefebvre. I'm always happy to answer your questions at committee or during question period. The questions you're asking are questions that deal with the Correctional Services Agreement, with agreements between the Correctional Services and other organizations. Correctional Services needs to establish a balance between the resources that it already has internally to meet its needs and to complement its services with various organizations. As I don't have a great deal of time, perhaps I will let the Commissioner answer your question during the second hour.
Too, but we're out of time on this. Perhaps on another round you can put a response over. We now go to Mr. Blancy, 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to everyone for appearing. Minister, we thank you for your leadership during these troubled times. I just read a recent article outlining jihadist training camps in the Mexican desert. You know, threats are close to us and very mobile, and so I congratulate you on getting the new anti-terrorism bill through. I know it was a delicate balancing act because we are very determined to protect our rights and freedoms in Canada, but also to protect our security. During the debate on the anti-terrorism bill, kind of heard some contradictory measures from the the opposition, or some messages from the opposition. One was that, this bill would allow our security forces to spy on all Canadians, especially peaceful protesters and so forth, but then also that our security forces are underfunded and unable to do their job under the bill. So I just wonder if you could comment on the enhanced funding in these main estimates for our security forces.
I thank you for your question, Ms. Oblonsky, and also for your keen interest in public safety. At the upfront, I would like to reassure you. I've used the expression so-called expert when we talked about our anti-terrorism measure. Why? Because anyone who dared to read the bill sees that there are many provisions where the bill is in full compliance with the office and the regulation regarding the privacy of Canadians, with the Charter of Rights. There's a lot of check and balances I've been mentioned earlier regarding seeking a warrant, consent of the Attorney General. So, and there's also been amendment to make it clear that there, in no possible or imaginary way, protester could be targeted by this bill. One thing that has to be reminded, and this is the 30th anniversary of CSIS this year, and the director can comment about it, but one has to be well aware that intelligence officers are not law enforcement and don't have the capability to make arrest or detention. It is in their genetic code. This being said, I want to highlight the fact that you've made me aware of those intricacies and link between organized crime, drug trafficking at the border, and also terrorism. So this, I would say, is certainly a explosive and dangerous cocktail. That is certainly a justification for ensuring that our police officer and CBSA have the resources that they need to keep our borders safe and work also with our partner. As I've mentioned, there is a provision of $300 million in the budget. I feel this is needed when regarding the threat we are facing, and also making sure that we are not putting all our eggs in the same basket. I don't know if it's an English expression, but it certainly is one in French, and that's why we need to keep a look at all the public safety challenges. But once again, terrorism remains the national security priority.
Minister, you mentioned a border, and we're aware that many Canadians' jobs and incomes are impacted either directly or indirectly by the flow of goods and services across our border with the United States. And you've just signed a pre-clearance agreement with the United States. It allows U.S. border officers to carry firearms on Canadian soil, and there have been concerns raised about that. So I'd just like for you to comment on this new agreement with the U.S. on pre-clearance.
Yeah, I thank you for the question, and I can certainly reassure you, thanks to the work, the excellent work of our negotiator. So there's in those agreements, the principle of reciprocity is embedded in the agreement that is in front of the House for in-depth examination. So whatever privilege that is I would say, or a mechanism that is put in place for U.S. border officer that would be in Canada is reciprocated for any Canadian borders officer that would be operating in the United States. And we also build on the long experience we had and pre-clearance mode at the airport, which began, I believe, in 1952. So we kind of updated it, built on it, and that's what is in front of us. So it is a comprehensive agreement that takes rail, land, marine, and also the earth mode, which was receive favorably on both sides of the border. And we are also going to work at making the border more less of a barrier for legal for trade, especially what we call visa without. We will allow truckers to go, Canadian truckers, to go in the United States and get back into Canada to shorten their road and make it shorter without having to stop at the border. So there's a pilot project. The truckers are really pleased with it, and this is a demonstration of CBSA working at making the border more smooth and fluid for legal people who are just doing trade and willing to increase our trade relationship with our U.S. partner.
And we are now finished our first hour. Minister, thank you very much for attending. We will start our second hour very shortly. We will suspend for 1 minute. Okay, colleagues, we are now back in, and The chair will advise the committee we have both some challenges and some scheduling things we have to deal with right away. In that the chair, of course, is aware, as we all are, that we have potential votes coming very shortly, which is going to mean that we do not have the time that is necessary and are allocated for the rest of our witnesses. So there are options that are on the floor. The chair will outline about 3 options at least of the many, and I will wait direction from the committee as to where they wish to proceed. Number 1, of course, according to Standing Order number 115.5, when the bells are sounded, we have the option of staying a little longer at the discretion of the committee, and it would take unanimous consent of the committee to do so. Being as how the votes are, of course, in center block and we are in center block, that is a possibility that you could consider. The second issue, of course, is on the actual votes themselves, on the estimates. There are 16 votes. They can be voted individually, or they can all be grouped, but it would take unanimous consent to group them. They do not have to be voted on today, but that is an option that is before you. And then the other issue, of course, is we have other legislation that is coming before the committee, and we were to set aside 10 minutes or so for committee business today to allow our schedule to move forward in the next meeting and two. So that is the issues that are before the committee right now. So the committee, the chair is asking for some direction as to which way that you feel you wish to proceed. First of all, let's take them point by point. Let's take the first issue. The chair would like to know whether or not you wish to proceed a few minutes after the votes are called. I'm asking for direction on that one first. Yes, Mr. Easter?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Is it a half-an-hour bell? If it's a half-an-hour bell, there's no reason why we can't stay for until there's 5 minutes left on the bell.
Okay. Yes, it is half-an-hour bell. Any further discussion? Yes, Ms. James.
I would just ask for 10 minutes in case anyone needs to visit the bathroom in between voting. I would ask for 10 minutes, but I absolutely think that we should be able to continue going as long as possible.
Okay. Would the chair have unanimous consent to move forward with and leave 10 minutes at the end? Okay. That is done. So then we will add very close to 20 minutes, I would expect, once the bells go. That is our first issue. Now we can continue with today. We can, with questioning, we can deal with committee business at the near the end of this, and the chair can allot 5 minutes aside for committee business and leave 15. I throw that out on the floor, and I'm just asking for a very, very quick deliberation. And if I don't see any sense, the chair will just make an arbitrary decision. But I'm looking for your input first. Yes, Mr. Garrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Since we do have both the question of voting on the estimates here in committee and committee business, might I suggest that when the bells sound that we move immediately to voting on these and committee business?
Ms. James?
I'm okay with that.
Yes, Mr. Easter?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's some important questions to be asked to the heads of agencies here, and we really do need an hour with them. If we don't have an hour today, then I would suggest we got to find another hour somewhere else. We get more answers out of officials than we do out of the minister, so I think it's important we spend as much time as we can with officials.
Your point is taken, and that would certainly have to take a motion to bring witnesses back if that were to be the state, but that would, of course, come under committee business. So first of all, we'd have to get to committee business to discuss that. Yes, Ms. James?
Given light that there is legislation that will be coming to committee, we need to do committee business today. So I would suggest that when the bells ring and we go in camera to do the committee business, that we actually cover the committee business portion first and then go to the votes on the mains, because those votes can occur, as you said, at any point, not necessarily have to be done today.
Okay, that's a reasonable suggestion. Are we comfortable with that so that we may move on and without delay? Fine, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Okay, so then we will now go immediately. We will open the floor to rounds with our witnesses. Will we have them here? And Mr. Falk, you have the floor. 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. First. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for attending committee here this morning. I'd like to begin my questions with the Commissioner for the RCMP. Commissioner, we've seen some of the media articles regarding the equipment that's offered to some of your members, and I know you commented on it briefly during the time the Minister had with us here, but could you also perhaps correct the record for some of the claims made about the equipment that the RCMP is using, or is alleged to have been using?
Okay, well, I think what I was referring to is that there were some discussions in the media. I think there were actors pretending to be police officers who were speaking transcripts. I didn't see the show, but were claiming to bring their own weapons to work. That is not something I'm aware of, and were I to become aware of it, or were any of my supervisors or decision makers to become aware of it, we would act on that. Which is not to say that we're not mindful that our members need to be properly equipped to do the job. And in that regard, they are. And in that regard, we continue to train them on various techniques that are evolving given the threat that Canadians are facing.
Also, in these main estimates do not include the additional resources that were allocated in Budget 2015. And could you comment on these additional resources that will be allocated in the Supplementary Estimate A?
Oh. Well, I know that there are this year's, well, I cannot. In fact, I'm not in a position to offer you any elucidating info on that. I don't quite understand what you're driving at. I'm sorry.
One thing that I've noticed on many of the RCMP vehicles around is that you're always soliciting for people to consider the RCMP as a source of employment and a career. Can you comment briefly to the committee on do you have the resources necessary to attract people, to train people, and to retain people?
Well, we have, yes, we do. And the challenge in bringing the resourcing of the RCMP up to snuff, to everybody's sense of snuff, is the idea that pressures are changing all the time. But in terms of balancing the intake to depot with attrition that we forecast in the force, balanced against real decisions taken in the contracting jurisdictions about what money is available, not just what hope and desire exists, but what money is being made available to bring people in, then we secure and we ramp up our intake at depot. For example, this year I think we're looking at close to 30 troops, projecting attrition and growth within the contracts. So we need to advertise, and I know that there's money that's being sought from the government to help us with that. And our training capacity at depot turns on the amount of cadets we're taking in. We also have some employment equity issues to make sure that we're targeting the right people at the right age in the right areas of our country. So all in all, it's a complicated system, but it's functioning.
And there are recruits available?
Yes, there are recruits available, yes. I'll tell you, though, the recruits are available. The labor market availability is strong. We need to get the right people in the organization, but we're competing with other police forces, and so while we have no difficulty bringing people in, neither do other police forces have difficulty attracting our officers once they're trained. So that's getting to be a little bit of an issue.
Okay, Mr. Klum, I'd like to direct a question towards you. Last night we voted on Bill C-51. We passed it in the House. We moved it along to Senate. You had a chance to speak to the bill here at committee, as did another 48 other witnesses. And we heard from some of the other groups that they felt the bill was actually targeting protesters instead of terrorists, and that CSIS will become a secret police organization through the Information Sharing Act, and that spying will happen on protesters. I know a former Assistant Deputy Commissioner, the Deputy Ray Bouvert, testified at committee, and he said people shouldn't be so flattered as to think that they're going to be targeted by the new measures in the bill. Can you comment a little bit on that as well, just to set the record straight?
Yeah, as I've testified before, in Bill C-51, the Info Sharing Act There's nothing in there that changed the CSIS Act in terms of the type of activities that we can or cannot investigate. And the CSIS Act is clear. Lawful advocacy, protest, and dissent is not something we can investigate unless it's done in the context of using violence. Nothing in C-51 changed that.
Much. Time is over. Mr. Garrison, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I got two things I want to try and pursue here in 5 minutes, so we'll see if that's, or less, see if that's actually possible. I want to ask Mr. Paulson, because I believe the allocation for enhancing national security falls largely in his purview, but if I'm wrong, maybe the Deputy Minister can comment on this. When you look in the estimates for 2015-16, there's $18 million allocated for countering terrorism. And so my question is about who is eligible to access that money and how it will be used. We met with, as I know many MPs did, the Canadian Association of Police Governance, the police boards, the municipal level, who bear a lot of the frontline work in terms of countering terrorism at the community level. And their question was, is any of this money available to them? And if so, how are they going to be able to access that money? So the countering terrorism money the ministry refers to is almost $300 million, is of course over 4 years. In this year, there's just $18 million allocated. So who does it go to? And are municipalities eligible for it? And if so, how would they access that money? Whichever of you, I'm sorry, since we don't know who's got the money.
Well, I'll take a stab at this, Mr. Chair. And we have, public safety runs the prevention crime strategy, to which we have a budget allocation of $40 million. And as you were asking the question, I was trying to find the actual number. So this envelope exists, and this envelope is for crime prevention. It has sub-elements to it. For instance, there's a sub-element related to gang-related type activities, prevention of crime in youth, and these subcomponents, measured in millions, but I don't have the details here. I'll provide them to you. Essentially, are available for proposals coming forward to be supported and then approved by the minister.
But in your table 431, where it says enhancing national security, countering terrorism, there's an $18 million allocation. That's not the crime prevention fund.
Okay.
That seems to be something else.
All right.
And it's not clear who has that money and how it's being allocated.
Okay. Well, that's money, if I understand your question properly, that is coming through the budget in the sort of phased in of that $300+ million. Right. So to the extent that we, the RCMP, are getting some of that money in the first year, recognizing the ramping up phase, we disperse that out into our investigative resources in the field, which our national security approach is built on integrated teams. Long story to say that there's no, at least to my way of understanding, direct path for municipalities to get that money. That's money that we're going to put in these integrated teams, in which sometimes members from those municipalities are partnered into. So in that sense, it's very long way around to getting money to them.
Thanks very much, because they were concerned that that was in fact the case, that there was no allocation directly for them. Which is not to criticize any additional allocation for the RCMP. We all know there's a real threat in terrorism, and that is money that's very much needed. I want to turn to corrections. Given the report that we received from the Auditor General, and I know the members on the other side have argued that the Auditor General should appear at the Public Accounts Committee and talk about corrections. I'd like to talk about that report here in this committee. And again, looking directly at the main estimates, there's something that is a little bit confusing for me. And so it says that correctional interventions budget from 2014-15 to 2015-16 will be reduced by $50 million. So that, I'm presuming, is the programming that goes on in the correctional institutions. And then the second line there, community supervision, is being increased by about the same amount of money. And so given the Auditor General's report, which says there's a problem in getting people out to community supervision that he thinks needs to be investigated, I don't understand this allocation. If the blockage is in the programming in the prison, then how will we be spending more money in the community? And I think spending more money, don't get me wrong, in the community is the right thing to do.
Thank you for the question. The adjustment that you see is actually a technical adjustment. What it is really a shift of where we account for the spending of resources in relation to psychological services. So there's actually no reduction in services. It's just it's an accounting under the sub-activities of the program activity architecture.
Much. Our 5 minutes is over. I'm so sorry. It goes so quick, Mr. Garrison. Yes, Mr. Payne. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank the witnesses for coming today. I'll try and be really brief. First of all, my first question go to Mr. Colomb, the Director for CSIS. And there's certainly some additional funding, as I understand, in the estimates. And I know certainly some of that funding is very delicate to where you might be spending it, so I know that you won't be able to give us directly where that's going, but I wonder if you could comment on the value and sort of the purpose of I think it's roughly $20 million in the 2015-16 estimates.
That amount of money actually that you see in the main estimate is the vast majority is actually reprofiling of money for a project that were delayed. That the bulk of that 20 million, in fact, close to over $19 million is a reprofiling of money.
Okay, I don't quite understand what that means, but
well, it's money that we had for specific projects like infrastructure, for example, that were delayed. So we were reprofiling that money to this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. And my next question goes to Mr. Portland's director for the CBSA, and certainly again they're having increased funding in the main estimates. And the minister did talk a little bit about where some of that funding would be going, but I wonder if you could sort of give us any further detail. And certainly I understand the strides that are being making on beyond the border action, and if you could sort of update us on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. The bulk of the money is going to be allocated towards infrastructure, technology, and projects associated with Beyond the Border Action Plan. So some of this is to develop a new or to refurbish major ports of entry. Some of it will be going to technology at ports of entry, such as the implementation of RFID. Some of it will be associated to trusted trader programs. We'll be adding lanes. So the majority of the funding is really to enhance our ability not only to secure the border, but also to facilitate through, again, new technology and new border infrastructure. Significant investments are being made in that area.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Portland, the minister also made some comments on the pre-clearance, and I'm wondering if you have any other thoughts and information that you'd like to talk about, in particular the U.S. Customs and Border officers working in Canada, and as I understand, there's a regime that Canadians work on the U.S. soil as well. If you could maybe update us on that.
I think the greatest advantage, certainly for the CBSA, associated with the pre-clearance agreement, is that it paves the way for meeting one of the key commitments of the Beyond the Border Action Plan, which is to develop a pre-clearance operation in Messina, New York. It's a key element of CBSA's operations. So as the U.S. will have the opportunity to establish pre-clearance operations in Canada, in a reciprocal way, the CBSA will also be able to position itself at a key location, which is Messina. So the pre-clearance agreement was a fundamental element to pave the way towards achieving that objective, and we're having some good cooperative discussions right now with CBP, our U.S. counterpart, to advance that initiative.
Thank you. How much time do I have left, Chair?
You have about a minute, sir.
Oh, perfect. I'd like to go back to the Director of CSIS and certainly have an opportunity to read the public report on CSIS tabled yesterday, and it seems that the national security threat, as I understand it, continues to be the highest threat, continues to be terrorism. And I wonder if you could make your comments on that report.
Well, to be brief, the terrorism threat at this time I would qualify it as persistent, unparalleled, And the volume of tempo, it's something that we haven't seen before, and that is happening in a time where the other threat, counter-espionage, cyber, are actually also increasing. So it's very challenging times in terms of the threat that this country faces.
Thank you very much, Mr. Payne, and we will now go to Mr. Easter. 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn to Commissioner Paulson again. Commissioner, I am concerned about the answer that you gave to a government member. You actually suggested that a major TV network might use actors to make the point. I wonder if you might want to rephrase that. I can tell you that that since that program has been on, I have had a lot of emails. Quite a number of people I called back, and I don't believe these folks are imitating something they're not. And I do believe what rank and file members feel is a lack of having proper body armor in some case, lack of weapons in another, and lack of training is affecting morale. If it's a money issue, we as a committee need to know about it. But if you might respond to that, I am concerned about that comment you made.
Okay, well, I didn't see it, so let me say that first of all. I didn't see the program. Somebody told me that there were people that were representing members who were actors now. So I don't know, so I probably shouldn't have said. What I will say about that is what I find disturbing, look, and it's not the members' characterization of the nature of the threat they face and the way in which the organization prepares them to face that threat. That's a fair conversation. We should have it. We do have it every day. What I find troubling is the characterization of the Moncton murders, the use of the Moncton murders to represent a shortfall and make a leap in analysis that I don't think is supported by the facts. It's a very complex situation. I think the report that we did and the changes that we're bringing to how the organization is run is a transparent, full, thorough accounting of shortcomings on the organization's part and a plan to fix them. I just didn't think that was a fair characterization of the challenge.
I'll just read you what one individual, an RCMP dispatcher of 8 years, said in the letter, quote, "Members and staff have no voices. Our jobs are put on the line by speaking up and whistleblowing." And they're thanking Global for producing that program.
But that's not true, Mr. Easter. Mr. Easter, that's not true. And I help you there because people, they couch these criticisms in the blanket of repercussions. And there are no repercussions. What we are building and what I've built and what I insist on having is an organization where those conversations take place without repercussions.
And I think it's good you make that point. And any other calls I'll get, I'll make that point myself. And another area related to RCMP. We're getting an awful lot of complaints on security checks for jobs that can't get the security checks, criminal record checks, etc., through the RCMP fast enough. You have employers wanting the employee, you have the potential employee waiting for the record check. Where is that at the moment? Why isn't the technology and human resources in place to get this done fast?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. The technology is, I'm happy to say, in place. What we need is the users in the field, so all of the police forces and agencies that are not part of the RCMP, to subscribe to the idea that we're doing this real-time ID. This real-time ID system is an amazing piece of gear. It's working. It's working for those people that have the equipment. There is some upfront cost to getting that equipment, but when that equipment is purchased and we're in the new age of digital communication, that is streamlining that process incredibly. So that's it's in place. Folks around the country need to subscribe to that, and we need to make that a reality.
Mr. We will now go to Mr. Rousseau for a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You know, national safety in my riding is a big issue. I have 7 points of entry, Lake Memphremagog, militia training in the Appalachie, 2 RCMP office, so it's a very big thing. So because I don't have much time, and I'll ask the question in French, if you may. Ce sont tous les petits...
It's all the little cuts here and there that make people worried, especially workers among the RCMP as well as in border services. One of the budget points includes, this is from Mr. Portelance, a reduction of $20 million attributable to the gradual elimination of funding of first-line operations. What is this going to impact exactly when it comes to first-line intervention? Because it's the little cuts here and there that really concern workers at the border and in the RCMP. Thank you very much for the question. It's an excellent question, and I'm very pleased to tell you that the $20 million in question will be recovered in budget 2015. Yes, these are amounts that are sunsetting, but they are included in the budget for 2015. Therefore, there will not be a change when it comes to the front lines. Has it been a while since you've been to the BB station at Stansted? It's a little bit rustic, which really could use a refurbishing. The good news is that in the 2015 budget, there are major investments that are being announced. We're getting ready to renew more than 70 border offices, and I believe we're going to cover most of our small and medium-sized border offices throughout the next 3 years. We're well aware of the situation, and I love going to BB. BB, as you know, is the area where on one side of the street you're in the States and on the other you're in Canada. It's very unique. I have a question for Mr. Paulson. Mr. Paulson, as you know, I have 2 RCMP offices in my riding, one at Stansted, which has just been renovated, and another, which is on the Bork Boulevard in Sherbrooke, very close to my constituency office. One of the aspects that we were wondering about was because of the reductions in the budget since 2013-2014, will one of the offices be affected by those budget cuts through personnel cuts, through reduced resources, particularly the one for Stansted that has border operations? Thank you for the question. I'm not able to tell you. I cannot be sure. I know that we're making changes in the way that we are managing federal resources in Canada. We have no intention of closing any offices or closing detachments, but it is one of the options that remains open. Unfortunately, I cannot give you an answer today. I would extend an invitation to visit those offices, Mr. Paulson. I think I can continue. Mr. Coulombe. Do you know that there are training operations for foreign militias and Canadian militias along the border, in the forest, and in Pinacle? Pinacle is not far from Quetzcook. What's going on with these operations? Because the surrounding villages are aware of it, and talk to me about it. What's going on with that? Thank you for the question. You will understand that I cannot comment on specific issues when it comes to our operations. If there are activities that represent a certain threat and that fall under the definition of threat as per the act that regulates CSIS, we are aware of it and we're doing what we have to. But again, I cannot answer you specifically on that file.
Ms. James, briefly, 5 minutes or less.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bells are ringing, so okay. My question will be directed to Mr. Colum.
Our agreement was when the bells started, we would go directly to the committee business.
No, we agreed to go. We were going to go 20 minutes. We're going to go up to 10 minutes to finish off with the witnesses, and then we would go to committee business for the last 10 minutes. That was the chair's understanding. That was the chair's understanding. If the chair is wrong on that, I stand to be corrected, but that was what the chair's. We thought we would just finish the round. That way, hopefully we'll get everybody there. And I'll just check with the clerk. The chair, actually, the chair stands corrected. Thank you very much. The chair was under that impression, but apparently so at this particular point then, we will now suspend and we will thank our witnesses for coming here today, and we will go in camera to discuss committee business. If we're the Okay, colleagues, I'll just bring to your attention, I'll just actually paraphrase very quickly, and I can read the full explanation should it be necessary. The basic tenet of my discussion is the fact that the amount that we will be voting on is the initial less, of course, the interim supply that went out on them, leaving us with the balance that we are voting on. Are we all comfortable with that, or would you wish the chair to read the process out?
Yeah, it was on the
Yes.
notice of meeting. So listed right here, and also there's a prettier list that was emailed to the committee when they were presented. Oh, I see. So here's the list one by.
First of all, then, Chair would like some direction. Are we doing these one by one, or can we do them in one motion? I would need unanimous consent to, no unanimous consent. We will go one by one then. Is that correct?
One.
Okay, well that's fine if we're comfortable on doing everything but the last one. Do we have unanimous consent to go that way? So we are going from vote 1 right straight through until vote number 14. Okay? So vote number 1 right straight through.
That's why we don't have a good, I'm sorry, we don't have a good list here to work with on number of votes, so the vote on CERC is the one I would like to treat separately.
Okay, that is...
That's the last one.
Yes. That is the extra vote, Reynolds. So the CERC is not included in the 1 to 14. It is all of the ones up to CERC.
Thank you.
Okay, so...
can you take a moment with me?
Obviously, the chair is not going to read out each one because they're all separate amounts, and as long as we are understanding that this does not include the vote on CERC, and this does give you the amount less the interim that was put out there, we're voting on the balance forward now. So cell votes 1 to 14 carry. Yes. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Carried. We will now go to vote number 15. So vote 1 under Security Intelligence Review Committee, less the amount of $619,830.25 granted interim supply. Shall it carry? Yes. All in favor?
Yep, unanimous. You're good, sir.
Oh, carried. Thank you very much. Shall the chair report the main estimates 2015-16 to the House? Yes. Yes? Thank you very much, colleagues. Is there anything else on future business? Seeing none, adjourned.
Actually,